Welcome to Deep Look, Ulti World's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Keith Rayner. Keith is in Connecticut. I am in Nottingham. I'm in the dorms here with everybody all together at the University of Nottingham for this event. So it is now here. It's about 10 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday, July 5th. I hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July if you're celebrating in the US. And hello to all of our subscribers, new and old, as we are live here in the Discord. So we are set for the quarterfinals in each of the divisions now at the Under 24 World Championships. And so I'll just quickly run down the bracket, and then we can chat about it, Keith. It's been quite the week so far. In the mixed division, USA will take on Chinese Taipei at the top of the bracket. USA 1 seed overall. GBR, that's Great Britain, taking on Japan. Singapore will play New Zealand, and Canada will play Switzerland over on the far side of the bracket. In the open division, it will be the USA taking on Australia in the first quarterfinal, Canada and Germany, Italy and Japan, and then Belgium and Great Britain. And in the women's division, it's going to be USA versus Great Britain, Italy versus Germany, Canada versus Colombia, and Japan versus Australia over on the far side of the bracket. So what a crazy week of games so far. We've now whittled it down to the final 24 teams, and we will march towards the finals on Saturday over the next 2 days. So, Keith, what has been your experience following along so far?
Been great. I mean, like as many of our fans know, there is a plethora of viewing options, way more than we've really had in so many other years. With the time, going on the way that the games are scheduled relative to US East Coast time, I can watch games through the beginning of the day, and then in the afternoon, work on some other stuff. So that's been kind of cool. It's been a good viewing experience. You're kind of thrown back, where I've got so used to nationals, like being able to see almost everything at college nationals. So like going back to I'm seeing half of the games was a little weird for a second, which is like a great spoiled place to be. But we've had some really awesome play on the field. And I think one of the first impressions I got from watching the stream, I was like, wow, it's windy, but people are good. Like I was worried we were going to be in for a total mess. Like near unplayable, and people have really shown the skill to be able to fight against the wind. It's been a factor, but it doesn't feel like it is ruining play, which I was very worried about coming into the tournament.
Well, I mean, I'll say that I have yet to watch a game where I felt like it was decided because of like upwind, downwind. And to me, that's what defines a windy game, is when, there's one upwind break. But that hasn't even been part of the conversation for the most part. And that's because, it hasn't been that windy. Depends a little bit on which field you're on. And there have certainly been sloppy games, but they haven't been overwhelmingly crushed by wind. So, there's so many things we can talk about. Why don't we just start with an update on Team USA? Because I've got a lot of American listeners, all undefeated so far. I would say all basically untested so far. USA women played Canada today in a game that was briefly close. Canada got a couple of late breaks, or middle of the game breaks after the start of the second half, to pull back within one, but then USA just zoomed away from them. And really what it comes down to is that if they can get their D-line on the field, it's going to stay out there for a while, because their defense is just killing everybody, including a very talented Canadian team. And it makes the open teams really haven't played a tight game whatsoever.
The open team was supposed to get like a big test today, and they played Italy. And not only do they outplay Italy, but Italy just like they're probably their worst game in the tournament. Yeah, they came out and laid an egg. It's just really not competitive.
15-2 the final, and just very ugly. So yeah, I mean, I think the big conversation, of course, Keith, is, are there teams that can that you think can compete and maybe challenge this USA team? And I'll just let you have the floor from what you've seen. What do you think?
Well, there are two teams right now that have asserted themselves in a big way, and they're both in opens and women's. There is another undefeated in mixed, the Canadians, but I still think that the U.S. is going to be pretty sizable favorites when they play those Canadian players in mixed. Should they match up? But in women's and in the open division, there has been a pretty serious challenger on the other side, and they haven't gotten to face off. And it's the winner in Pool B in both of those cases. In the women's division, that's Japan, who has a fantastic plus 74 goal differential. That is 23 points better than the U.S.'s goal differential. Nobody has scored more than 4 goals on the Japanese women's team. So they have been utterly dominant, the best team at the tournament, bar none. And then in the open division, the buzzy team coming into the tournament, the Belgians, their point diff is only 3 goals different than US. They're 53, the US is 56, and they're 7-0 in Pool B. So the Belgian team has been really exciting. They've certainly looked apart. There's nothing feels fluky about watching them play. They beat Canada 13-7, and that has kind of launched them into the conversation. You don't always get the buzzy team coming in and delivering like this, but the Belgians have been very good.
Yeah, I mean, some people might look and say, "Oh, they played a close game. They won on Universe against Australia today," but they didn't need to win that game. They were kind of playing with their food. I doubt they substituted very tight in that one. I wouldn't take anything away from that game. And Benji Reese, one of the commentators in the chat right now, mentions that they were totally resting until it got chippy, and then they took it seriously out of spite and won the game because they were mad about Australia, starting some drama on the sidelines. So, well, I don't know whether that's true or not, but fun story. And yeah, I haven't personally watched this Belgian team yet because they haven't played on my field where I'm producing. So I kind of have to just reserve judgment. I watched a little tape. They definitely looked apart. I think that the U.S. team, that they are going to match up very well with the top level players on the U.S. team. I think that the best players on Belgium are absolutely at the level of the best players on the U.S. And there's an argument to be made that Dan Desmarais is the best player at this tournament right now in the open division. And that includes, over the top of everybody on the U.S. team. We'll see when push comes to shove, when those teams maybe face off. But there's a lot of tests to pass along the way. And I think the biggest team, though, Keith, that Japanese women's team, they pose a real threat to the U.S. They really do, because the U.S. women's O-line, while ultra talented, able to put holes on the board, does also cough it up. They coughed it up a few times against Canada. They got broken 3 or 4 times in that game. And the defense was enough to overcome that. I think the U.S. are going to have a huge athletic advantage in the game, but the Japanese throwing skill, top to bottom on the roster, probably the best at the tournament. They have been slicing and dicing in the wind. And yes, sure, they crushed their pool. Their pool was definitively weaker than the U.S.'s pool. So I don't want to overread into it. But I feel like just from the eye test, from what we've seen so far, I do feel that the Japanese team is basically at the level of the U.S. and that the winner is very much in doubt. And I do not think it is some sort of foregone conclusion that the U.S. women's team is going to win the tournament. I think Japan has a real chance, and I'm almost certain that's going to be the final, unless one of those teams lays a huge egg in semis.
You went as far as to say that you would have those teams as a pick'em in a head-to-head.
That's what I
bold,
said.
Very bold. Ravi Vasudevan had raised the question at should they be considered the favorites. There was a lot of instant pushback, including for myself, on that idea, and I stand by that. I still think that we needed more evidence, and we might get it. I mean, if Japan goes out there and absolutely crushes Canada, that's going to be a pretty compelling piece of evidence. If we see the teams from Pool B that Japan beat look good against the teams from Pool A, and we're going to get some of those crossovers in quarters, then that'll be some compelling evidence as well. I am very impressed with what we've seen from Japan in the women's division. And the U.S. has not really had a chance to get a sense of this Japanese team. I think that's one of the challenges that U.S. teams face is they have to go up against Japanese teams. And, I think the coaching staff's going to have a pretty good sense of what the Japanese style of play is. You have a couple of vets who will have seen some of these Japanese teams before. I actually think that this women's team has a decent amount of experience from like WUCC that they can lean on, especially in their top end players. So they'll be like, okay, I've seen these Japanese teams play. We have a sense of what their style is, but all the knowledge in the world might not help you stop the level of skill that we're talking about. This is also a really big U.S. team. We know that that's long been one of the things that I think that the U.S. can use effectively against Japan, especially if they can get Kennedy McCarthy off the sidelines. That just adds more and more size. But Dawn Colton's been so good at this tournament. She could be a real nightmare matchup.
Dawn was so good today against Canada. Just totally dominant on both sides of the disc. Looked like easily the best player on the field. And really all of the UNC players I thought were impressive. Up and down. Like maybe the best players out there. Teresa Yu is excellent. Erica Birdsong is after this college season and what I've seen so far, U24s, I'm on the Erica Birdsong hype train in a big way. I think she's got monster potential in the next couple of years. I think she's going to be a key piece for this USA team moving forward. But I was impressed up and down. I mean, the young players, Ezra Waybright, and the really young players, Chloe Hakimi, and I can't say her name.
Rachel Chang.
Who's the other? Rachel Chang. Thank you. I mean, how good are they? I mean, I'm watching Hakimi pick the disc up on the goal line as like the initiator. I'm like, she's 16 years old. She's playing against players 7 or 8 years older than her. And she's like there to pick up the disc in a stop disc situation player. That's wild.
The talented team, of course, as you would expect, but you're right about UNC. I mean, you can carry that over to the open conversation too. I mean, I think to my eyes, Ben Damert's been the best player on the open team. And I'd probably say that Dawn Colton's been the best player on the women's division team. So like, it's the UNC thing carries over. It turns out winning 3 straight titles in your respective divisions is a pretty good yardstick, pretty good sign for how well you're going to play at the basically college-aged international tournament too.
Well, look out for these Japanese players though. Asuka Katagiri has been phenomenal. Mira Matsuzaki, their big thrower, just slicing and dicing with the best of them. They're balanced. They're deep. They're like the U.S. They don't have players up at the top of the, assist leaderboard. They're more spread out, and I can't wait to see those teams play. I hope we don't get that spoiled. Although, you know what? We'll see. Canada might just be the second best team here, and we'll find out probably in semis.
They're an interesting team. I mean, they feel a little shallow right now. And part of that, we watched them play against the U.S. and Mika Kurahashi missed a lot of that game. But it really feels like they ask a lot of Madison Ong and Sarah Jacobson. And then on the defensive side, a lot of Penelope Robert, Kurahashi when she's on. I mean, it just feels like they're really dependent on those players to carry them a long way. And those players are really good. So that works out a lot. And it's not like the rest of the team are slouches, but it just feels like they really need those players to play well. And that is probably a weak point when you go up against the US and likely Japan, teams that, as you can see from the stat sheet, are not particularly dependent on any one individual. So particularly against the US defense, I think that is a weakness for Canada, but we'll see how they fare if they get a chance to go up against Japan. Obviously really talented. We've seen some absolutely huge plays from Anna Gadu, who's like making some of the biggest plays in the tournament. Been a ton of fun to watch that. But I'm curious to see how they'll fare against Japan. And like you said, I hope we get that matchup as kind of the teaser for the U.S. If we do get it.
What a moment today when Gadu skies Stacey Gaskill, nasty sky, and then they collide in the air. Gadu comes down with it, and she like looks at Stacey, who's like lying on the ground on her stomach, sees the Gaskill on the back of her shirt, and like loses her mind, and then proceeds to spend like 4 minutes being hyped on the sideline that she just rocked Stacey Gaskill's world. That was a monster play. It was awesome.
And the huge layout from yesterday too was definitely one of the plays of the tournament. So definitely the big playmaking there for Gadu. But I wonder, will we be able to see some of these other players rise to the occasion a little bit and take some of the workload, particularly off of Macedon, who has to really drive the bus from the backfield, I think, for this Canadian women's division team.
Ravi asks in the chat about us mentioning the Netherlands heartbreak today. This was tough. This was really tough.
Is it the Netherlands heartbreak, or is it Ravi's heartbreak? Because the way Ravi was in Discord, it might be Ravi specifically.
But listen, Keith. Listen, Keith. So they needed Belgium to win their game, and they needed New Zealand to lose their game. Now, Belgium didn't need to win, and we're sitting key starters. Okay, so like probably not going to happen, right? And New Zealand needs to lose. I said they needed to win, but they need to lose. I got that wrong. They're playing Ireland, okay, and Ireland's down like a handful of goals late, like very late, to New Zealand. So Belgium ends up coming back to win, okay, because they rallied late. They win on Universe. And so Ireland starts to rally against New Zealand. They get a break back. They get another break back. They tie it up, Keith. They go to Universe. They get the disc twice on Universe. They do not score. New Zealand scores and wins. And all the Netherlands players are like on the sidelines rooting for Ireland. And Ireland doesn't pull it off. That's tough.
Yeah, it wasn't. There were some fun drama elements to the final rounds of play. Some kind of play-in games, and this one worked out particularly because of the kind of three-way tie nature there. I think New Zealand's been kind of one of the surprise, I guess you could say, nations in some ways at the tournament. They've had some real high moments, and I don't know that they were on people's radar coming into the tournament. But obviously, the Netherlands, who have Anne Menard, who's playing really well as a handler for them, even in the open division. They were right there. Couldn't. You can't let those opportunities slip away. You just can't. And we've seen some of those. We've seen teams let slip away at some points. I don't want to take away from the Netherlands, so I don't want to tell the other stories. But I'll just say I saw somebody against the U.S. who had a chance to take control of the game going into halftime and failed, and then basically never scored again. So. There's some great drama. I know it feels like sometimes it's like, oh, the U.S. is clobbering people, Japan's clobbering people, but there's definitely drama down the line, and it's meaningful for these teams to. It's more than just who wins the gold medal.
Let's take a couple questions from the chat a little further on back up here. What's been the most exciting game in each division? Okay. Well, Keith, I'll let you go first. You've probably honestly seen more overall games than me. That's possible.
Oh man, there have been some barn burners that like really went down and had wild endings. I just want to make sure that I remember them across the different divisions. Thinking back to mixed, scrolling through the games to make sure I get them all. There was, I know there was a crazy one on stream that I actually did not get to watch. So somebody gets out that had a really wild ending. But I know I'm pretty sure on Sunday, that was when there was the Great Britain Japan game in mixed. That was pretty wild. I had a lot of fun with that. There have been definitely a lot of close games. Just even looking at the score lines, there have been a lot of really close games. Let's see. How about in men's? Or an open, excuse me. Sorry. That's tough. Japan and New Zealand was really good.
I'm trying to think. I feel like if we missed out on some of the key games from the stream. The Belgians played. I guess the Belgian Canada game was really good, right? No, that wasn't close.
But it wasn't that close. It was exciting.
They played close against Japan.
Yeah.
The Belgian Japan game was 13-12. That was a miss not to have that on the stream. I heard it was great. I don't know that I've seen like a great, super close open game yet. I think the bracket is going to have some fun stuff for us, but a lot of separation from the top teams.
Women's division.
Trying to ID.
I don't think we didn't have. No, Canada, Germany. That was on stream. I'm pretty sure.
That was a classic
in the women's division.
That was awesome.
That was very good. That was a very good game. Yeah, that's probably the one for me. Shout out to Ava Mueller.
I'm trying to remember the games that I've seen that have been really entertaining. There have definitely been a handful, and of course it's just all blending together. I've got to be honest. I think I saw a Singapore game that was really good, and that's what I like about these tournaments. Benji is going to bring me a beer right now. So Benji, this is live in Discord. I'm in room 6. I'm in room 6. And so basically you go into these games, Keith. You go into these games and you see, you're like, okay, who are these two teams? Okay, like what's their records? All right, you kind of have a sense of what it might be. And then you just never know. Like stylistically, you could get a crazy game. You'll get people throwing crazy throws. You could just get a total, and like two sort of mediocre teams that don't make the bracket could give you a fantastic game. And that's one of the things that I love about this tournament, because there's so many days of these early rounds that you get a chance to see all these different teams and get an opportunity to watch them compete. And there's always some really fun games, even if they aren't necessarily that close, which sometimes I think some of the most fun games so far this week have finished like 15-10.
And the fears that I had about the wind have, like we mentioned, have mostly been allayed. But there have been some real oddities. There's been some crazy plays. Discs pop back up or deflected, throws that have gone away from their intended receiver and have resulted in some wild catches. So there have been some really fast-paced moments, people picking up the disc and turn over, and then a play. That's the game that I'm thinking about. So Ravi said Japan, Belgium was not on stream. Who was it? Yeah. There was like, I'm almost positive it was Japan that was playing on stream, and they were like, they're having these kinds of crazy back and forth points where there'd be a lot of turnovers. They had a huge layout block in the zone. Like there's been some wild stuff caused by the wind. And I think when you get off of the top teams, you start to see the wind have a more outsized impact on the game. You start to see things bog down a little bit, but the players are athletic enough that there's still a lot of really exciting plays happening.
Well, Liam Grant has just brought me a WKD Blue, which is some sort of like Smirnoff Ice like type beverage that looks truly terrible.
Wow, did you just get suckered? Because he said no.
He did. I didn't know what it was. I just said yes to whatever it was. I knew it must be something. I think you may have got played. I also got a Stella though. And Liam, I want you to tell us a little about the offense you saw in the final round today. Liam is here. Liam Grant from the broadcast booth.
Talking about Chinese Taipei. I just really wanted to draw something on the Telecaster and got the opportunity to draw a banana, which I called the banana stack. It was just an opportunity I took. But I want to talk about Blue Wicked, the beverage I brought. Yeah, Wicked as known. It's a cultural experience, Charlie, that I'm providing for you here. It's made with real blue. Contains barley, we found out as we tried to give it to a celiac. So it's kind of a breakfast drink as well.
It does say suitable for vegans, so that's good to know. Alcoholic malt-based premix. All right, well, I will try it out. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is this the malort of?
I don't know. I'll open it up right here and I'll give it a try. Let's see what we got going on here. It is a distressing blue color. I mean, it's like it looks like pool water a little bit, to be honest with you. Let me try it. Oh, that's That's not good. But it's interesting. It's fruity. I can see like if you had this on ice on a really hot day, it'd be nice to drink. It tastes kind of like melted Jolly Ranchers. So anyway, I will enjoy a little bit of this over the rest of this pod. People are sharing the link in the chat so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so let's see. I guess, where are you looking for quarters? Because I'm kind of thinking ahead, and I like kind of have the teams that I expect to see in semis, Keith. But I'm curious to try to think about, okay, well, where are we going to get the most competitive quarters? By the way, all 12 quarterfinals will be streamed. 10 of the 12 will have commentary. 2 will be streamed, just single camera. And then we'll have, of course, all the semis and the finals. And all of the quarters are tomorrow. So get up early, make it happen. We've got the brackets in the chat if you want to take a look at them. Where do you look first, Keith, in the game and you say, okay, this is the one that's going to be close and could go either way?
Well, let's see. So I'm starting in the mixed division here. And for the games that I'm like, okay, this is the drama. I feel like Great Britain and Japan is the one that jumps out to me. In mixed, shout out to Chinese Taipei though.
100%.
They were a team that I think was not on anybody's radar, and they have been quite good. But
They have to play the US. I mean, it's not going to happen.
That's tough draw. Japan is a 4-3, which is not, I think, what you would expect from the 2 seed coming in. And Great Britain has been good. They're 5-1. They got a plus 37 point differential. So you got this kind of like established power in Japan. Then you got a Great Britain team that has been a bit of a surprise for the tournament. So I think that this could be a really interesting matchup. Tough to even handicap what I think what to expect. I mean, I guess you make GB like minus 1.5 point favorites or something. Like, I don't know. Maybe you give more credence to the tournament than I'm giving, and you make them like minus 2.5 or something. But that to me is the matchup that jumps out.
They've definitely been solid. I mean, I was kind of thinking they might have a chance to beat Canada, and then they kind of got killed in that game, which makes me a little concerned. I mean, they've already played once, of course, as you mentioned. So we'll see. I think feels like a coin flippy game. I think we saw that game on day one on the stream. It was a really good 13. That was the best game of the day on the stream. So okay, then I'll look at open. I think I have to go Italy, Japan. This Japanese open team gave Belgium a great game. They pretty comfortably won most of their other games, aside from that opener against New Zealand, which was super close, 14-13. And, Italy looked honestly kind of unstoppable until they played the US today, and they just had the worst game of their life. The question is that going to be a
dropping
problem?
It in the end zone? I mean, it was bad.
Terrible. The thing is, in the back of their mind, Keith, they had to know that game didn't really matter. They had to know that they didn't really have to try that hard, that they didn't really want to give too much away. And so I think it's difficult in that circumstance, especially as a team that's not favored to win, to truly come out and play your best. Now, of course, you don't want to see all the drops and stuff, and it's not how the kind of energy you want to bring into tomorrow. But I think you kind of just look at that one if you're Italy and you say, well, we don't play like that. We're not going to do that again. We're going to be fine. The question is it going to be enough? Are they good enough even to beat this Japanese team? And I wonder if it raises doubts considering how badly they got beaten today. But their offense up to that point had looked like the best offense at the tournament in the open division. Like literally better than the US. They were like going full halves without having a turnover from their O-line. And then the US offense was sagging the lanes and then tightening up at stall 5, and they did not handle that well. And that was compounded obviously by errors, but should be a really good game. I'm very intrigued.
they pounded a respectable German team. Japan, like you mentioned, they were the closest they've come to taking out Belgium. So yeah, to me, that's definitely the matchup in the open division. I'm fully there with you.
Okay, so let's
all right.
look
So
at the
that takes us
division.
that takes us to women's. I mean, to me, this it's easily Italy, Germany. Well,
I just don't think any of
maybe
the
I
other
shouldn't say that.
games are going to be competitive. I mean, I just think it has to be because Canada, Japan, and US are going to destroy in their games.
I will say Italy's been pretty underwhelming. So I mean, I guess I do think I don't know which game I would expect to be closer, this game or Canada Colombia. I guess there's a chance that Colombia plays really well, but I think yeah, you got to take Italy, Germany, but I'm not like super thrilled about it. I think Germany's looked pretty good. Like I mentioned before, Ava Mueller just got 38 assists on the tournament. She has been awesome. I don't know if it bothers the Australians who she used to play with, watching her just dominate, but she has been really, really good, which is a lot of fun to watch, and I'm definitely rooting for them. But yeah, that Italy has not been exactly the team that we thought they might be from a challenging standpoint. They struggled to beat Singapore and Austria, and they beat Colombia by 3, and they lost to GB. And I don't actually know if that game actually mattered, but yeah, it's not been exactly the roaring start that we might have expected, given some of the recent results for Italy's women's division teams in international play. But I think there'll be dogs coming into Germany, but it's the most compelling quarter to me. Also, like we said, it could be telling about the Japan-USA setup. These are two teams from Pool A and Pool B. Get a sense of where Pool A and Pool B are and the relative strengths of USA and Japan.
We need to reconvene tomorrow evening to talk about the semifinals because that's when the rubber is really going to hit the road here. I mean, if you think about the likely matchups, USA versus winner of Italy, Germany, Canada versus Japan in the women's division. I mean, Canada versus Japan could be an amazing, amazing classic game. On the men's side, I think we'll see USA, probably Canada, but I don't know. Germany could win that game. And then Belgium versus the winner of Japan and Italy. That's going to be epic. In the mixed division, I think we'll probably get USA versus Great Britain. And then I guess it's hard. I feel like it's harder to predict here. Canada versus Singapore. And hey, Canada versus Singapore could be a classic game too. So that's definitely where I'm looking for the actual games where it's like, all right, we've got the highest quality teams that can truly match up with other elite teams. But you know what? I feel like every year I get surprised by a couple quarterfinals at any tournament that I go to. So I'm pumped for tomorrow.
I'm not expecting chalk across the board. That's for sure. I think there's enough close matchups and enough teams that have been like inconsistent or that we don't know that well that I think we're going to get some surprises. Like that Singapore and New Zealand game, like I could really see going either way in the mixed division. So yeah, I'm expecting to get a bit of a surprise somewhere. I'm pretty sure in our picks, I'm having trouble remembering exactly, but I'm pretty sure I faded the Belgian Open team. So yeah, maybe I need a GB upset to help me out here because they've really looked good.
Robbie asks, which country or team has surprised you the most, positive or negative? I mean, I'll come out and say it. I mean, it's been a disappointing overall tournament for the Colombians. And I was concerned about this coming into the tournament. And here we are. They don't make the bracket in the mixed division. They don't make the bracket in the open division. They do make the bracket in the women's division, but they have no chance, I think, of getting to semis. I mean, this has been a powerhouse country, and it still is at the level because of some of the just incredible talent that they have. But where's the pipeline? I don't see the future for Colombia right now looking as bright as the current.
I think Colombia's not definite answer for surprising in a disappointing way. I think Australia's been a little underwhelming for me. If when you take into account like the full scope I think that they've been a little bit disappointing, and they're missing the bracket in the mixed division is a tough look for them. Other than that, like the team that's probably surprised me the most. I mean, I definitely didn't. It's weird to say. I definitely didn't expect Japan to look this good in women's. I mean, they have been just outstanding, and I thought they might take a step back coming into this tournament. But we kind of knew what the Belgian team was bringing to the table in open. Singapore mixed, GB mixed. Those are both pretty surprising.
I was going to say, Keith,
outputs.
GB is in the bracket in all three divisions. I did not expect that.
Home cooking, baby. I
did not expect that at all. They're not winning any of these divisions, but that's an achievement on its own. How many countries I literally haven't like done the actual, like looked at it yet, but like how many countries have a team in each of the divisions in the bracket? US, Canada, Japan, right? And then GBR. And is that it?
Yeah, I think that's it.
I don't think Australia did it, right?
No, Australia missed a mixed. Germany missed and mixed. Italy doesn't have a mixed team. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Pretty sure that's the whole list.
That's very impressive to me. Very impressive. I was fading GBR hard before this tournament. And they've looked respectable, especially in mixed. They could make semis.
Just a medal in mixed. A home turf medal will be pretty exciting.
Okay, best players you've seen from a country other than US, Canada, and Japan.
And Belgium. You just can't say Dan DeMarie.
Yeah, right. we rule him out. Yeah. Well, the player we saw today, who's I just happened to pull up the leaders on the scoreboard. Average goals and assists combined per game, and Jiafeng Lin from Chinese Taipei, who was fantastic today in their clinching win in pre-quarters, is averaging almost 5 combined goals and assists per game. He's been fantastic.
I've already talked enough about Ava Mueller that I don't need to continue to do that. Laura Arango has been really good for Colombia. She's been carrying a lot of water there. That's a player I was familiar with. I also didn't want to say Ben Ort, who was awesome for the Netherlands, but we pretty familiar with Ben Ort.
How about Barzazzi for Italy? He's been real good.
I know. I want to accept that even he didn't play well in their USA game.
Well,
he dropped one in the end zone too. So I was like, oh no.
I didn't see that one. I got to be honest, but I think sometimes your team gets infected by the plague. You ever been on a summer league team where that happens, where just nothing will go right? Horrible. I was on a team once that won all of its regular season games and then got the plague in the first round of the playoffs against the bottom seed in the playoffs, and we lost. Awful.
It happens, but you'd much rather have it happen now in a game that basically didn't matter. Than
Alejandro Marin was good for Colombia in the open division. He was impressive. I'm not allowed to say Canadian players. Okay. Ireland for New Zealand, Zaria Ireland. That was a super fun game. We saw her playing against Ireland. That was the whole thing. A player named Ireland playing against Ireland, competing for New Zealand. He was awesome. Good. Awesome. Super fun game. If you haven't watched that one, I honestly recommend going and taking a look. New Zealand versus Ireland women's.
That's very good. Very good. What else? Charlie, this one's for you. What has the atmosphere been like around the tournament? What's the vibe?
What's the vibe? I mean, I feel like people are having a good time. The weather's been pretty good. There's been spotty rain, but nothing, not longer stretches of dreariness. I think we're going to start to have the weather warm up a little bit. It's been chilly. It's been in the 50s and low 60s. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Teams are super excited to be here. They sold out the finals. You know, I don't think they were prepared for how many people would want to come to the finals, and so they just I know of people who are not going to be able to come, that were planning to come but don't have a ticket, and like now cannot come. So an Englishman in Benji Reese in the chat says this isn't chilly, this is glorious. So I'm not gonna complain. I'll tell you what, it's been breezy but not horribly windy. It's barely rained. We've had mostly sunshine. It's been quite pleasant. And I think it's only going to warm up from here, and it's supposed to be beautiful for Friday and Saturday. So I will not complain.
Sell out crowd. That's a lot of people coming to root against the Americans, I'm pretty sure. I'll tell you what, I touched on this early without naming it, but when the GB and US Open teams were playing, and GB had him on the ropes in the first half. They had the disc with a chance to take half, like 30 yards outside the end zone or whatnot. Threw it in the end zone and failed to complete it, and then like everything went off the rails from there. But I already had queued up a GIF of Jonathan Groff from as the king in Hamilton, ready to go for when GB took half on the US, and I had to delete that. It's just buried in the drafts now because that game turned real quick.
We remind you of my love.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. These next couple of days are going to be awesome. You know, this is like we get a chance to learn about the players a little bit. We see the teams, we get a feel for everything, and now it's like, okay, now it's elimination time.
Is it weird that I'm like, I know it's kind of boring to say, but I kind of expect the US teams to keep getting better. You know, they famously don't get a lot of reps together. That's not the case for all the other national teams that they're going up against. I can't say how it compares to Japan's national team, but the US has kind of the all-star team style, and we've seen them in other arenas and other international competition kind of form together over the course of the tournament. I also think they've been dealing with a couple of injuries, so I think they're playing it cautious with some of those across the different divisions. So, like, it would not surprise me to see the US get better and better throughout this tournament. Other teams may do the same, but it could be. I don't think it's going to be US going away necessarily, especially not in the women's division, but it could be. It could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can't say for sure yet how good Japan is, but the eye test is very impressive. But they're in a pool where they played no other team, like the other teams in their pool all lost at least an additional game beyond the one they lost to Japan. So there was no 5-1 team, which kind of shows you that it was like kind of like a bunch of sort of mediocre teams, and then there was Japan. But when you don't give up more than 4 goals in a single game, I don't care if you were playing the B teams, you know, that's impressive. So we'll see. I think you're not wrong about what you say. The US teams are literally, this is their practice. Like they are practicing each day to be ready for the big games. And, you know, the USA women, I thought today kind of passed the test against the Canadian women. They weren't perfect. Their offense is definitely not there. And they may just have to not have the best offense, you know?
Yeah, their defense might be good enough that they may not have to play good offense.
Exactly. I think it's possible that Japan's O-line will be better than the US's, and the US still wins the game because their D-line is that good. They just are suffocating teams because teams aren't used to playing against the level of individual defenders that the US has. Like, what do you do when like Cleo and Dawn are your matchup? Like, you're like, oh, I've never played against a player this good. That's the case for this many matchups here. They've literally never played against a player as good as Don Colton. And then Don Colton gets like 5 Ds. Okay, so Robbie asked it again. What odds do I put on the US sweep? Before the event, Keith, I think you set the line at basically straight up pick 'em plus 100 for the sweep.
I think we ended up tuning it to minus 120 or minus 130 or something for sweep.
I think it's moved to plus 125 to plus 150.
Wow.
I think it's noticeably less obvious to me that that's going to be a sweep. There are multiple teams that could win over the U.S. in pretty much every division, although I think they're probably going to win in mixed pretty comfortably.
I'm maybe more curious about Belgium because I think that Japan is just probably that good. I'm maybe more curious about like what happens if Belgium goes up against the U.S.
I think it's that in that matchup, it's like USA -3.5. And it doesn't mean that Belgium can't win, but they'd have to play great. And the U.S. would have to have kind of a weaker game. Any other questions before we wrap it up here, folks? Keith, I will just remind you that tomorrow we should make our PEC West picks. I know truly no one cares about PEC West right now.
Someone in the chat, make sure to help us remember that.
Well, we're going to leave it there. We'll be back tomorrow. Subscribers only the rest of the week. We will check in before the semis and before the finals, probably right around this kind of time of the night. I say the night, it's the afternoon in the US. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you being a subscriber and joining us here in the Discord. And we will see you tomorrow morning for the quarterfinals. Schedules will be up on social media, and all the quarters will be streamed. So you're not going to miss a thing. Even if you don't want to get up super early, you can always catch up on the archives. So thank you, everybody. And looking forward to an awesome set of 3 days of bracket games at the Under-24 World Championships. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood signing off for this edition of Deep Look. Good night.